The more you watch of this video, you're probably going to admit that this is a pretty cool shower. It may not be your style, but look at some of the features here. You've got two shower valves, one that gives you the regular spray from the shower head in the wall, and then the waterfall shower head over the top, which I joked with the homeowner that I almost wanted to try it out the night before I turned it over to him. You walk into the end of the shower and have a ton of room. I did wonder if it would be cold in the winter time, which remains to be seen because there's no shower door with the open-in walk-in design. But in testing it, I did turn on both heads at one time just out of curiosity to see how the water pressure would hold up, and it did fine, and it steamed up the glass, so it may hold a comfortable temp even in winter. Though I'm not much of a tub guy, I might be able to get used to that tub. Anyway, the homeowner did a great job of picking colors and materials he wanted, and I give him a lot of credit for thinking a little outside the ordinary. We began this project with tearing out the old cultured marble shower and tub. That's always kind of an enjoyable part of the job because you get to destroy a lot of stuff without much concern for anything except your plumbing and water lines and your electrical wiring. As long as you don't damage any of that, you're pretty much going to be rebuilding everything else in the bathroom anyway, so it's kind of fun to take hammers and saws and get rid of stuff. In order to try to help customers visualize what their finished bathroom is going to look like when it's completed, I use a familiar program called SketchUp to do some basic renderings for them to see. That process also helps me to think through the job, and the way I do my drawings, I pretty much construct the project in SketchUp. So this was the first rendition based on our initial conversations about the design. This is more of a traditional shower with a standard shower floor and a center drain, and from here we went in quite a bit different direction. This involved relocating both doors in order to add some width to the shower and to make room also for a larger tub. That's when I switched to using a preformed foam shower base that I talk about in the video linked in the corner. That was a big change for me, but in this situation, because now the shower was getting quite a bit larger, it made sense to use a linear drain in the final installation. We made a few more design changes in the final product from this drawing, but this version pretty much captures the intention of what the homeowner wanted. So this helped us to lock in on what we needed to do before we could set tile, and this drawing was enough to let us move forward without needing to revise anything else. I want to spend some time in this video talking through the process of setting tile on this job and the kind of things I was thinking about and keeping in mind to try to make sure it not only looked good when it was finished, but that it would function like it's supposed to do over the course of time. As I mentioned earlier, we had quite a bit of structural work to do, which included shifting the entry door and closet door about 8 inches or so to the left to give us more interior space in the shower. We also ended up building a platform for the tub to rest on and extended that platform to enclose the step down into the shower. That helped us deal with any water that might splash out of the open end of the shower by directing that water back to the drain. The first thing I wanted to do when beginning to set tile was to get the foam shower base covered with tile and grouted. The sooner that happened, the less chance of damaging the foam board shower base. I always like for my shower floor tile to go in first and then have the shower wall tile to actually rest on the shower floor. Installing the tile that way, once that joint is caulked, you have a watertight joint. Although it may seem like setting two different types of tile in the same shower may be a bit of a nightmare layout-wise, it's really not. Here I'm centering the wood grain tile in the middle of the shower floor. It runs through the shower floor and out the end and up on the platform and then under the tub. The wood tile I think is 4 inches by 44 inches, and the main goal was to keep it running straight and parallel with the wall. I'm cutting my gray concrete looking tile filler pieces as I work my way across the deck. By cutting and putting them in place as I work, I make sure I don't have to disturb any other tile that I've just set in order to get these pieces in place. You can see that I have a pencil reference line there between the gray and wood tile to keep everything square and straight. You really start to get a sense now of the dramatic contrast between the wood tile and the gray. This is a pretty unusual combination of tile for me to set, but if you start checking magazines and websites, you are seeing more of these combinations of colors being used. Lots of different shades of gray with various other accent colors. As I said, the gray tile, which is 12 inches by 24, really has a polished concrete look to it, with various shades of light and dark gray accenting each tile. It's a pretty striking contrast with the wood tile. I now continue wrapping the wood tile up the wall and will take it all the way to the ceiling. The only alignment I'm concerned about is keeping it running level and plumb with my boundary pencil lines on the wall. I don't have to be concerned about how its grout joints align with the grout joints on the gray tile, because the sizing between the two tiles are so different, it really doesn't matter. I know some of you are wondering why I'm using white thinset instead of gray, which would be easier to work with. And I'm sure some of you have already figured that one out. The manufacturer of the foam board recommends a special brand of their thinset to be used with the product. In fact, there are two versions of it that can be used, and it comes in gray and white. Of course, when I'm purchasing the materials for this job, all the supplier had in stock was white, so there you go. I guess I'm using white. Here are the kinds of things I think about when I'm doing layout for alignment of the tile. In the case of the gray tile, obviously I want to have the level line that's reflected on my shower bench to be aligned with the tile on the wall behind me, if at all possible. So this line here, I want to be level with this line here. Also, ideally, I'd like to have the lowest point of my shower floor have a full tile starting my run up the wall, rather than some tiny sliver at the bottom of the shower floor. You just do the best you can to try to consider as many ramifications of the choices you make when laying out the tile. So I always do quite a bit of thinking about that before I ever start setting any tile at all. You'll see shortly that at the top of the wall I have about a ½ inch cut at the ceiling. That's just the way it worked out. By starting with the full tile at the floor low point, which is ideal, that means I have a real thin cut to make, which is fine. You try to think through all the options that you can, but ultimately it comes down to getting going with the work and making it all work out. Just a comment about the shower valves and cutting the holes for the tile. Yes, I did take the valves into consideration when I was doing the layout in the hopes that I could make it work out that the tile edge intersected with the valve's locations. That simplifies making the cuts quite a bit. The finish trim that covers the valves and sits against the tile is square, and I really didn't have to make the round cuts that I did. It would have worked out fine to have made square cuts that the finish trim would have covered. But this is something that I've always done. I think it helps my skills to make these kinds of cuts whenever I have the opportunity, because it really doesn't take that much more time. Anyway, that's just something I do. Sometimes I've seen people deal with situations like this with a thin cut to make against a corner, and they may try to spread the joints a little bit in the tile below and then just grout that gap up at the top. That's really a lousy idea for a lot of reasons, but mostly because it just looks terrible. If you have the tools to make the cuts, then make the cuts. They are a pain to do, but the final product looks so much better. There are a couple of things to notice here. One is that as soon as I got out of the wet area where I'm setting tile on the foam board, and instead I'm setting tile on HardieBacker and sheetrock, I switched to a different thinset, and it is gray. Much easier to deal with. The second thing is that my son Ryan is doing the grouting. Now Ryan can do a lot of things really well, and some of them might surprise you. But he's also a really good grouter and understands the importance of that job. So I'm always happy to see him be the one that is refining his grouting skills instead of me. It's great to work with other tradespeople who take their work seriously and always do quality jobs. The folks at Ideal Mirror and Glass in Albuquerque, New Mexico have done work for me for more years than I want to try to count. The measurements on this project were particularly tricky, and Ideal made a couple of trips out to the job site to check their dimensions before they cut the glass. And the results were a perfect fit as usual. Maybe seeing this remodel has caused you to rethink the styles you like and maybe consider something a little more contemporary, or maybe not. I'll also have a video on this vanity and mirror that Ryan built. You may be surprised that if you talk to this mirror, it actually talks back. Thanks for watching.